So we can call this regular meeting of the Board of Finance to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Present and attending in person, I have Mr. Wright, Ms. Pesky, and Ms. Anuncido, and participating via Zoom, we have Mr. Reyes. That creates our quorum. So before I jump into the meeting, could you all please stand and pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item one on the agenda is we looking for a motion to open meetings to the public for public comment. So moved. Ms. Pesky?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bex. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Anyone from the public wishing to address the board at this time? Seeing and hearing none, I'll let you come up for that. Motion item numbers, okay? All right, seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to item number 2. I'll entertain a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from January 17th, 2023. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Second, and second by Ms. Pesky. All in favor? I'm sorry, wait, before I call that motion, any comments or questions on the minutes? Now I'll call the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Item 3. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the request for an increase of the appropriation, $894 in funding for the Torrington Youth Service Bureau to be paid from the contingency fund pending approval of the City Council. So moved. Thank you, Ms. Pesky.
Second.
Mr. Wright. And I did ask Kathy Holm, excuse me, and Mark Winnicky is here to just talk a little bit about what happened there. I don't think they've seen your memo. So do you want to talk a little bit about the grant and what this additional appropriation
Yes.
means?
So one of the basic,
If you could come up to this microphone, we'll be able to, it's less what they can hear, more what the recording picks up.
one of our basic grants is a DCF grant. We apply for it every 2 years. And gives us a base grant, an enhancement grant, and last year it also gave us a supplemental payment. I think it's because of hope, possibly, not quite sure. But what happened is we have to turn in a budget. We have to turn in a budget accounting for how the supplemental dollars need to be spent. And they will only be spent on direct services. We turned that in, thought we were fine, and then we found that there was an increase to the match that we have to provide. So the DCF dollar base grant only, not the enhancement dollars, needs to be matched by the towns. Now the towns are not just Torrington, it's Hamilton and Burlington. But Mark and I and the part-time staff are the only staff we have, so we don't provide services in Burlington and in Hamilton short of juvenile diversion and when somebody calls us, but we don't do groups. And I don't know whether you saw my lovely pictures and numbers. So we supported a lot of people in Torrington. So I'm coming to you to ask for help because I can't in good conscience ask Hamilton and Burlington. And we got a lot of other grants. Our budget is currently $180,000 and we are going into this year with a deficit of $17,000. It's just the way it works, but we work harder and we are in the middle school and in a number of elementary schools. We do a lot of good work. We supported over 1,000 people in 2022, if you look at the pictures and the specifics. Any specific questions?
Great, I don't
We have $894.
Yeah, and just again, when Kathy brought this problem to me 2 weeks ago,
Yes.
we were discussing it, you know, and this is the unfortunate thing when you're timing our budget adoption with the state's budget adoption. And then you find out after the state's budget is adopted, you know, and now all these agencies are learning what their appropriation is going to be based on what we match. So that's what created this very small gap.
Yes, and usually we would not get a separate allocation in the middle of the year because this ask for an increase actually came in June. If you read my email, I was totally confused and I wrote it, as Eleanor said, in grave and probably more in detail. But I couldn't decide and I said, that's what I need to ask for next year. It has never occurred, and I did call the state, I did call DCF and say, I don't understand, please explain. The budget is prepared at the beginning of the year for July 1st, not in the middle of the year, it's already said and done. How can you ask me to go back now? So that's how we ended up, and they're very close with the match, so a dollar makes a difference because I won't get any of those grants, not just the basement enhancement or anything. But we do good work. I think your money comes to good use.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no questions on the motion, I'll call all in favor. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving into item number 4, I will entertain a motion to authorize the following budget transfer and amendment request. This is for the current fiscal year 22-23, as further described in the City Comptroller's letter dated February 16, 2023. Again, this is pending City Council approval. Motion. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Second, I Ms. Presti. And the floor is open for questions. Just what is it?
It is, they were requesting, the police department was requesting to transfer funds from their evidence management line item to their capital reserve to fund the fence securing the police impound lot. So as we're budgeting this year, they're also going to be budgeting for additional funds. So we're putting it into the reserve we'll then transfer it out of the general fund reserve into the capital reserve. So that when they do make those improvements, we'll have all funding available.
I think we've got to really add that in our department level review of the current budget or the budget proposals for this fiscal year, they had similar funds. And Robin identified that those were not really operating budget expenses. They were technically capital. And for that reason, we then went back and looked at what we were had in the current fiscal year and recognized this is a correction we really should make. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and then item 5, I will entertain a motion to consider business by department heads. Mr. Wright. Second. And you know, the first one's always the hardest one. After that, you don't feel quite beat out. I said, well, yes. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so department heads, I'll go to the floor first. I see that our treasurer is here. Anything to add this evening for that update on our bonding?
Yeah,
Don't want to twist you around.
Usually I'll do this at the end, it doesn't.
Well, we are. You're here and it'll be another month before you get their attention.
Yeah. So we, for bonding for the high school, middle school, we had our interview with Standard & Poor's credit agency last week, and their rating is due to us tomorrow. The bond and note sale is going to be held on March 1st, and the closing will be held on March 15th. So we're going out to bond for $17,250,000 in anticipation notes and $18,450,000 in bonds for that project, which includes $7,250,000 for road work as well. On another note, the Connecticut stiff rate, which is the short-term investment fund, today's rate was at 4.68%. We've got a substantial amount of our money invested with one of the local banks here in town. They're paying us 5 basis points over the stiff rate. So we're getting some good interest. My last thing I'd like to talk about is the state of Connecticut publishes what they call an unclaimed list of funds that are available for properties that people may have forgotten about. Open a small account somewhere, or you had something with one of the businesses and they tried sending you the money and sent it to the wrong address or what have you. But I went on the unclaimed property site and I filed claims for 68 claims for the city of Torrington for a value of $15,778.20. And just so everybody knows, I saw a lot of familiar names on that list. So I'd suggest you look at biglist.com. If you're not on here, probably a family member is. I think that's all I've got to report. Any questions?
Mr. Brown, you talked about the standard for interview.
Yeah.
Can you briefly just describe what that entails?
So they basically want to know the history of our finances.
Who was at the meeting?
They?
Who was at the meeting?
Oh, at the meeting would be Mayor Carbone, Robin, myself, and Bill Lindsay, who represents us through the bond work. So we met in the other room. It was a Zoom presentation, and they asked us questions about our financing and how we plan and how we budget moving forward. They looked at our past practices and current practices and discuss what we're going to do in the future.
And our current rating is,
AA negative. But I think they considered it AA based on some formulas. So they classified it as AA negative, but some people refer to it as AA with a particular formula that they use that I'm not familiar with.
I think the other questions, and this interview actually comes after Dan Farley does all of the official statements. You know, he helps pull together how many pages is that statement?
102 pages.
102 pages. And it's not only the financial condition of the city, but it's what's our potential economic growth. Because our bond rating isn't just on, how well are we handling our finances, but what are the prospects for brainless growth for new businesses? That's the barometer by which they measure how successful will the municipality be in the coming years, especially if you're bonding over a 20-year period of time.
Right.
Which the high school bonding portion of the bonding is a 20-year bond.
Mm-hmm.
So an incredible amount of work goes into a document before they get it. They start to read through it, they formulate questions. It's a little tense because we're all anticipating the questions and, we're doing our homework. But when one of us is trying to call in and gets, cuts out when the question is being answered.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I know there's a part of Winston Road that you forget it, you're dropping your call. And I think Robin was hoping I was covering that question. But it took about an hour for the call, from beginning to end, everything from your insurances to your tolerance for debt, what are you building, what are you taking down. It's a really very comprehensive process. I think we've almost got it down to science since Dan has taken over a lot of the reporting mechanisms, and this is our fourth round with this money. So hopefully that call goes well tomorrow and we find that we anticipate there will be no change in the bond rating. Certainly, if we could show more economic growth, they love the fact that we've done, our riverfront housing. That's, good news. All of the grants that we've received, $6.2 million in grant funding, that's all good news. But they want to see our grand list growth to know that we're really confident.
No, that's it. And the grand list growth has been good, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mr. Drew, anything to add on public works?
I have nothing there, I think it's.
He's just waiting for $7,250,000 so we can start building roads again. Robin, anything to add this evening?
I provided everybody with the current budget performance reports and recommendations. Continue reviewing it, if I think anything stands out, I'll mention that. Yes, for this year. Now is really the time we want to start looking at where everything is.
We must have pretty good sand and salt left.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we're doing really well.
I know, it's been a minute. But the plow came by today and I'm like, oh, but yesterday was the holiday. Because we had snow up in our neck, we had a bunch of stuff.
All right, and you all remember Kim Aviles, our deputy controller, anything to add?
I'm back officially today full time, so
It's good to see you.
back more on back there.
I know, very busy department, extremely busy department, and we're grateful that these two ladies are holding down the fort as well as. All right, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by the mayor and members. So. Mr. Wright, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll start to the screen. Anything this evening, Mr. Reyes?
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything this evening? Nothing from me. Oh, good. There being no further business before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Second.
And second by Mr. Reyes, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or adjourned?
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.